Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us to learn a little bit about what's going to be happening with the redistricting and how and why you should become a committee person. So I am going to introduce Annie Dennison, who's a co-founder with me of Stand Up for Lower Merion and Narberth. She's there in the corner, but of course your view is different than mine.
Hello.
We work together and get the newsletter out each week, and that's always a fun job. It also takes a lot of time. This is all right. Slideshow. And escape so that we're going to share the screen. And we're going to put it into present mode. All right, here we go. We changed our logo a little bit, and we always had helping hands make a community stronger. But instead of let's volunteer, which just puts it on everyone else, it's let's work together. I think that's more of a community type of saying. So there we go. So what is a committee person? Oh, I'm just going to let you know that because Stand Up for Lower Merion and Narberth is a nonpartisan organization, all this is going to be from a nonpartisan view, all the descriptions. So I do know that our area is mainly Democratic, and but you know, if you have any questions afterwards, we can address those. So I'm going to change the view for me. Okay, wait a sec. That's not what I want. I want.
We see it good. We see it good.
Yeah, but I am seeing. Oh, here it is. I got it. I found it. Come here. There we go. I couldn't read all of what I was saying because it was covered by your beautiful faces. A committee person is your representative to the Democratic or Republican Party in your precinct or voting district. I live in Lower Merion 82. I see a couple of my constituents, which I like to refer to them as. I happen to be a Democratic committee person in this precinct. I do a lot of things. And they are the grassroots of a political party. We're the smallest representation area, a precinct. There's two of us, ideally, there's two of us in a precinct. And we interact with people on the grassroots level. We're elected every 4 years during the primary in the year candidates run for governor. So that would be 2022. And if there's openings, they can be appointed anytime after the election. Actually, it's too much minutia, never mind. It's close. Because they are party specific, the primary is their election. So we're elected in May. And we don't have to run in November. So it's only one election cycle and you're done. What's the job of a committee person? They represent the local party in their precinct, advise voters of elections, candidates, events, find out voter issues, hopefully people get in touch with us. I keep trying to reach out. I don't get a lot of response. Maybe my communication is self-explanatory and nobody has questions. That's my ideal thing that I hope. And we drop off literature, etc. We work at the polls on election day. I'm also a judge of elections, so I can't work the polls electioneering on election day. So I appoint my husband to go stand in my place. But I work the polls as judge of elections, and I've been working the polls for over 30 years. So if you ever have any questions on how stuff works, I'm your person.
So is this the folks in the front, Adrian? You know, the front tables and it stand out?
Yeah, that's the committee people.
Yep.
Would be working those and volunteers. We help candidates canvass and obtain signatures on petitions. Remember this, obtain signatures on petitions, that's going to come back again. And we attend township party meetings. And we vote for local party leaders, policies, and bylaws, and endorsement of candidates, or to choose not to endorse candidates. We join committees, we make recommendations, we serve as officers and committee chairs, and we influence and help direct the local party. And hopefully our actions increase voter turnout in our election precincts. Why should you become a committee person? Oh, I have to, oops, back. Excuse, wait a minute, I got to get out of full screen in order to go back. There we go. Why become a committee person? Only committee people and officers vote on important issues at the local, area, and county level of their party. So if we're picking a party chair for Montgomery County, only the committee people vote on who that party chair will be. They elect officers of the local political committee, so that would be the Republican committee of I think the Montgomery County Republican Committee, or the Democratic Committee of Lower Merion and Narberth. So as committee people, you'd be electing officers. We endorse candidates at the local and county level. We approve local political party bylaws. We approve policies and procedures of the local policy party. I had that we approve expenses, but I've never remember us ever approving any expenses that the party did. And we try and create a sense of community around values and legislation and help shape the culture and values of the local political committee. We try to educate voters on issues, candidate positions, and community events. And hopefully we become a trusted contact between the residents and the party. So now that you're absolutely convinced this is what you want to do, you want to know how to become a committee person. Here's just a little thing. If you've never come in contact with or received any literature from your current committee person, you probably have a good chance of winning the election if you run. So keep that in mind. You must live in the precinct. You must be at least 18. And remember, I told you about the petition form. To keep in mind, you have to get a petition form, which you can get on the Monco website, not quite yet, but you can get a petition form there and get at least 10 valid signatures of voters in your precinct. So if you're running for a Democratic committee person, you would get 10, preferably 20 valid signatures of voters in your precinct. If you're a Democrat, then you would get 10 to 20 valid signatures of voters in your precinct that were Democrats. Independents can't sign your petition, and they do have to live in the precinct. And then you have to file the petition at the Board of Elections by the deadline. Generally, the party chairs will meet somewhere, and you can hand off all the petitions and they'll take them to Norristown for you. So to win, you have to get a majority of votes in the precinct. You will knock on doors of voters, introduce yourself and explain why you're running and ask for their vote. Leave your info with at every home with a member of the party you're running in, with the date and location for voting. Plan to be at the polling location to greet and remind voters you're running. And also read your county committee people manual. And again, the election will be in May, just in time for the critical 2022 election in November. By becoming a committee person is how you can change the climate of the party at the local level. Committee people decide if there are endorsements. I heard that giggle. They can decide whether there are party endorsements or not. They elect the leadership of the party. They interact and get the support of the community. And one thing that's really good is you can work on issues, get out the vote, candidate recruitment, communications, and more. And that gets you to learn and introduce yourself to other people on the committee. Okay, we're going to go back again one. I'm going to stop the share for right now.
Adrian, is a great question on.
Yeah, okay. You can and often hand out. Oh, Nancy, they can be both. They can do both things. So it's a combination of volunteers and committee people. Ruth Jenkins asks, is there a conflict of interest when a committee person is also their commissioner? I don't think it's a conflict of interest as long as they're not being political when they're being a commissioner. So Gilda does both, Ray Courtney does both, Gilda Kramer does both. And I think they can do, I think they could do both, but it would be nice if we had more people involved so they didn't have to do that. So you have that. Gilda is also a vice chair. So she's got a lot on her plate. And so does anybody have any questions? I know there's currently 9 openings already on the committee. They're mostly in Ward, there's in Ward 8, Ward 10, Ward 11, and probably somewhere else. If you go to, if you Google Democratic Committee, Lower Merion and Narberth, you get to the their page. They have a list of all the committee people. They have a list of the bylaws. They have a little thing on what a committee person does, so it has the full description. I know some people have an idea that the party is a little contentious, being on the party. The last couple meetings have been actually quite good. And reach out to your committee person, find out Philip asked, where have committee people had challenges participating? When she didn't ask who, Jerry, she asked where. Usually when it's about endorsements or changing anything, I think a lot of the mindset in the committee is because we've always done it that way. And we need to have more people who want to progress to the next level. I mean, elections aren't run the way they used to be run 20 years ago. We have mail-in ballots. There's lots of changes. So that's been an issue. But go onto the website, either the Democrat or Republican, find out if you have an opening in your precinct, and reach out to your committee person. The emails are all there. If they don't get back to you, that's probably a good clue that they really need somebody to work in that area. Time commitment is not much. It really isn't, because there's lots of weeks where you don't really have to do anything. It's basically, if you're on a committee, there's a little more time commitment, but I think realistically, thank you, Annie, for putting that link in there. Realistically, I think maybe an average of an hour or so a week, but you don't do every week. So when it's right before the election, you're doing more. You might be going out canvassing before that. So there's there are blocks of time. Like February to May, you'll be busier. And then you're probably off most of the summer. And then starting September to November, we're probably going to start a little earlier because of mail-in ballots. So end of August to November. And then you kind of take a break a little, and then we go back. So that's really it. Yeah, Ruth wrote more activity in the weeks leading up to elections. Are there often challenges if there isn't an opening in the ward? Well, it would be an election. So you'd run an election. And that's what it'll be. Also, I understand that about 20 committee people aren't rerunning. So even if there's somebody in the ward, again, in the precinct, reach out to them, see if they're running again, and then go from there. If you have any questions, you can always get in touch with me. So I think that is about it. Oh, thanks, Nance. Yeah, we just got another person in. I think we found somebody in for 8-1. I think 8-4 has a vacancy, unless they filled that while I wasn't looking. And I plan on running for vice chair. So if somebody wants to take my seat, they can do that. I saw that smile face. And so, okay. Yeah, Jamie brought up a very good point. The endorsements for 2022 will be happening before the primary. So it's only the people that are here now, unless you can get yourself appointed before then, that'll have a voice in those new elections. But you will have a voice in the 2023 local elections. So that's one thing that we want to do. But Next thing I want to go on to is redistricting, and I'm going to give like a 2-minute thing and then actually turn it over to Jamie Mogul. So I'm going to share again this screen, and then after we're done that, if you have more questions, you can ask them then. So we're on back. Redistricting is better good enough. Lower Merion and Narberth's proposed legislative maps. Here, for some reason, I couldn't copy and paste the legislative maps, but I could do the Senate maps. So here is the current map for this gray-green area here. This is Lower, oops. Okay, sorry. So here is, I clicked, unfortunately, this is Lower Merion right here. And we're part of a Senate district that includes Radnor, Haverford, Upper Merion, West Conchie, and Bridgeport, Norristown, East and West Norriton, and I think that's Whitpain. The new district will include most of the same things, but they took out Worcester, they took out Whitpain and put in Worcester, which I don't quite understand. I'm going to stop the share here and then change the share to give me a second. Thank you for your patience with me. Preliminary Senate, and I closed something by mistake. All right. I'm going to share this because I want you guys to see this screen here. This is the PA redistricting website. And on here, you can find the proposed congressional maps. This is where I found the maps already. So here is, here's your House district maps, your state Senate maps, and also the congressional district maps. We can comment on the legislative maps, the Senate and the House, but comments on the other one are not happening on the state. And here's where you comment. So this is the website that you really want to take. So I'm going to copy that, and we'll put that in the chat. So let's take a look at the legislative maps. A minute. So of course it's not going to want to load. All right. You know, I'm going to stop the share. I bet Jamie has this stuff in stock, and I'm going to ask her to kind of, some things you want to keep in mind though. Districts are meant to be compact and contiguous. So no crazy splitting or dicing to gerrymander, or as Jamie says, buddymander. The House districts are set around 64,000 and the Senate at 260,000 for population after the Senate.
Hey,
census.
Adrian,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Are you just reading from the document I gave you?
Yeah. So
do you want me to show people the
yeah, you do
Okay.
it so much better than
I
do.
don't, I think you're doing amazing and I love the slideshow, but they probably just want to, I think from what you told me, they just want to see maps and not hear us.
Yeah.
That is the feedback you've been giving to me. So
Yeah.
if you let me share my screen, I'll just show people that Senate map again, what it looked like before, what it looks like now, maybe what's good, what's bad, the ugly, and then I'll do it for our legislative district. I know
Right.
some of you who are on here have heard me talk already, but we're just going to focus on our districts.
Okay.
And then I put in the chat, really important that we get to have a say. These maps will be for the next decade. So we want to make sure to let everybody know, and even some municipalities. I'm working through the league to make sure that our county commissioners say something, because our county is split unnecessarily 5 ways, and it is really diluting our voice and our representation. Or like somebody like Horsham Township, I'm sorry, their board of commissioners or board of supervisors, I believe. They also wrote letters. So there's a lot of local electeds and school district directors that are writing to the commission to say, do not split our communities unnecessarily. So let me share my screen, and then I can talk here on my, this is the website. There are some final hearings this week before that 1/18 date. These are the legislative maps, and it's pretty easy. You know, you can read more. You can up here to the right, they have the link to make a comment. But you may be wondering, like, what would I even comment on? How would I even look at a map? And so I'm going to take you right to look at our maps. So I think this is what Adrian was trying to show you all. The big thick pink outline is to outline our county. Can everybody see that? Okay, I see nodding. I see Philippa nodding. And the gray district, that's our senatorial district. As Adrian mentioned, now it's outlined in white here. Lower Merion being on the right here, it is divided with parts of Delco. That's to the left. That's Wayne, you know, Radnor, that top portion, and then Haverford, a township below there. You know, while municipalities under PA Constitution are not supposed to be split unless absolutely necessary, this would be an example of, yeah, it's not so unusual to split this here because, you know, the main line, this area, you know, I grew up on the Wynwood line that, you know, you cross the street and it's Delco and it's Haverford, right? So this is an instance where it's not so unusual to have some splits. It goes up through and including Upper Merion, Bridgeport, as she said. This is the new district, okay? So, you know, this is, it looks very compact and contiguous. It includes Norristown and East Narden and West Narden, where it did not include that. Sorry, I'm looking at the current PA map, okay? So it has East Narden, but you see this weird yellow district. I'm having us look at our current district. Pardon me moving around. But you see all this craziness that happens here. I have to actually scroll over because East Narden and West Narden are divided. West Narden, you know, yes, a different municipality, but East, West, and Narden and Norristown are part of a school district. School districts are not required to be together, but they are communities that we would advocate should be together. And it splices and dices Monco and goes over into Chester County, and then also includes parts of Berks. So that's a really crazy district, the 44th. That's current incumbent Katie Muth. Our current incumbent, Amanda Capoletti, lives up here along the line between North Wales and East Narden, the green and gray here. So she's up here. So incumbency is part of things because we have a process, unfortunately, where legislators, politicians, leaders of the caucuses are involved in drawing these districts. So candidates must be a resident of their district for at least a year. So that is something, of course, even Chair Nordenberg of the 5-person commission said, it's impossible for me to start and not consider incumbency when I have party leaders on my right and my left. And so let me just show you our new map. So we can see it pretty much looks the same. As Adrian was saying, there's a few changes here and there. It's again, this gray, darkish gray, brownish area. Whitpain is removed, now it goes all the way to the other side of Montgomery County and includes Worcester. East, West, and Narden and Norristown are all included now, which is good. And it does kind of slice off here and does not include, you know, the areas out toward Whitpain. Does include Wayne and Haverford. I just want to go into something else. This is another tool that can be used. These are all available on PA, Fair Districts PA. So if you've heard me talk, you know, people are like, well, what do I look at? How do I know that this looks good or not? Some are more obvious than others. Like a district, I'm just going to flip back to show you one that's more obvious than others. How about this one? You know, this is District 7. This is the current map, and it hasn't changed much from the other map. It goes from 48th and Market, this is Vincent and Hughes, through Roxborough, Manayunk, and all the way out to White Marsh, dividing Montgomery County. So that one, you know, you could look at it and be like, that looks crazy. Why would they do that? This would be an example of something that is not beneficial to people. You know, these are very different demographics, geographics, regions, competition, ineffective government, diluting voices. But let's go back to our district and the stats. You know, 260, you heard Adrian say, is that set proportion. All of our districts are set proportion after the census. I just want you to notice over here to the right, this is a great tool because you can compare. So while it might look compact and contiguous, right? So it doesn't split these municipalities, which are the dotted lines. But if you look over on the right on total population, I want to point out for you a key statistic. The above average, it's in green. I'm highlighting it right now, moving my cursor. We are over 8,000 people over population. Now, of course, there's some population deviation that's allowed, but I'm pointing this out to you all because we are in the fastest growing region of Pennsylvania, and these districts will be set for the next decade. So if we're already growing, I think you all can figure out, we don't really want to overpopulate our area because that's essentially wasting votes and diluting our power and representation. And I'll tell you, those of us who are redistricting advocates and, you know, mappers, you know, we can tell you overwhelmingly the Southeastern PA, the fastest growing region, are all overpopulated districts, which is very concerning given that these are maps for the next decade, as I said. So that would be something we would be looking at. So any questions on the state map, and I'll share these links out. It's kind of cool. You can use this cursor here. See how I'm dragging it across, and I can compare the old lines. So as Adrian was saying, you know, Whitpain, and then it chopped up West Narden and East Narden here. I can see that coming through, and I can see our old district as well as our new district, and the old stats on the left side and the new stats on the right. Just for comparison purposes, this is PA's, the Fair District's PA map. I should tell you, just as somebody who lives in Lower Merion, I do not agree with this map. It splits 3 different counties, but just to show you what some other mappers did, because it includes parts of Philadelphia, Delco, as well as Monco in our area. But, you know, just to show you that there's plenty of mappers, people who look at this differently, and you can play around. But if you want to comment on our map, I know I'm preparing, you know, testimony that's going in, and I'm having it signed off. I will be pushing our county commissioners to say something. So that's our Senate map.
We should be pushing our township.
Well, I haven't gotten yet to our township, which I think is more important when we talk about, and I agree with you, Adrian, but I'm going to talk now about our house maps. And I think you're going to know why Adrian said that we should be saying something. Any other questions on the House Senate map? No. Okay. So let's take a look. I'm going back. And again, these tools are all available through the Fair District's website. When you go to the front, it says compare maps, and I just linked on it. Yes.
There are, you know what? Let's save the questions for the end, guys.
Kim, I will answer that question about, and no, no is the short answer to your question. Does the state legislature decide on these legislative maps? No, but I'll get to that. How do we advocate? Okay, yes, Ruth, Kim, let's look at the maps, and then I think Adrian's right, then and she and I and anybody can answer those questions. So let's look at the legislative maps. So I'm gonna key off of this, and you can tell I've been doing lots of these presentations.
Yeah, I was struggling trying to do that with the maps.
What'd you say, Adrian?
I was struggling to do that with the maps.
Yeah, I have a lot of people who make comments to me that I say a lot, but I think when you try to go do the presentations, you understand now, Adrian, it can be very complicated. So I'm gonna zoom in on our area. Okay, our current map, what a cluster, you know what, of gerrymandering, okay? Because here's Lower Merion. We are divided 4 different ways. First with parts of Philadelphia. Then I have to actually zoom out and keep zooming out to show you how ridiculous this is. This is all the way at the bottom toward the Philadelphia border here, and then it goes all the way out to Ambler. And then we have this green area, and I should note here, this is nothing to do with incumbents and what I think of incumbents or what any of us think of incumbents, but really to talk about what is a compact and contiguous and fair district. So I should have said that. So this is a green, this green here goes all the way down Lower Merion, splicing us up, and all the way out to include a little part, again, of divided West Narden. And then we have that strange area. I think Adrian's in this area, which divides parts of Radnor, jiggy jaggy here. This is what we call cracking in gerrymandering terms, meaning I'm going to splice and dice this area to favor and make it a certain outcome. So it's a little part of Lower Merion there next to the green, and then parts of Haverford, and then parts of Radnor. Is there a question, Adrian, that I should stop, or I guess you tell me if I should stop talking?
No,
yes, Eileen, I can talk about that bill when we're done. No, Lower Merion is not a majority of any of our current district. And I should say Lower Merion Township is the largest township in Montgomery County. And so, you would think we'd have better representation. So when Adrian wrote, is better, like a lot of people say more is more, like it's a good thing, but I don't think you need to be a genius to look at this and see how we're spliced and diced, and that, say, for instance, if you wanted to advocate for funding or something related, the Board of Commissioners wanted to deal with stormwater, or I don't know, there's so many things that come up, right? About how can you have efficient, effective government if you're always the least amount and you're divided here. So on the one hand, sometimes splits are necessary, but there's a reason why our Constitution says, and that's our state constitution, split should be avoided unless absolutely necessary. Now, population is a reason why you might have some splits. So any questions about our current map? And then I'm going to show you our new map. All right, I guess Adrian would interrupt me if there was a question. So let's look at the proposed map. And right away, what do we all see? Lovely Lower Merion, split almost down the middle, not quite down the middle. Now, there are some weird lines in Pennsylvania. I should say that, we are a Commonwealth. We have thousands of municipalities, boroughs, townships, with weird waterways and different areas. Like over here to the right, you see a little pink area that goes into the orange of Abington. Well, that's the borough of Jenkintown, right? So that's not that that's gerrymandering. That's just, the way the municipality is bounded. So back to Lower Merion. Okay, well, Lower Merion is with Narberth, would be Lower Merion School District. I can actually show you the school district lines. So you see here our school district line, which also happens to be the outline of all of Lower Merion Township, with Narberth down here at the bottom. I don't know why it doesn't have, I can also show you the municipal. So you see a little Narberth down there. It's not so little, it's over 4,000 people. But our population would be too much. We talked about overpopulating. It would be too much over the 64,000 set out by a district. But you have to wonder here, is this a good division? Well, what do you all think when you look at this? You don't need to be a mapper or an expert to understand your community and to know, does this make sense? And so I would, this is me, and I would say, well, you have to consider, why would we have most of this division cutting down here and then out all the way to White Marsh? That's the other half of this V that's happening here, the darker area. And then you have King of Prussia, Upper Merion area, West Conshohocken and Bridgeport, all the way down with the other end of Ardmore. I mean, I gather that Valley Forge is a very different area than Ardmore. So you have Upper Merion School District kept all together, which includes Bridgeport, West Conchi, and King of Prussia, Upper Merion. So, and then you have ours divided. So what would be the alternative? Because somebody, I know Jerry and others have asked me, well, really, do we want to divide people? Because that could also be, we've talked about divisions, but there are some alternatives to this. And this is why you need to speak up, and does this help our school district? Does it help our community? I would gather, we only have one sitting incumbent, and she is here within this district. Mary Jo Daly lives, Narberth area. So she would here remain in this district. I will say, the previous districts, I'm going to go back to this comparison tool and click on the house. I would like to show you that just the rate of population growth in our area, because it's really important to see that and see those numbers so that you really can understand that two of these districts, which essentially kind of, the edges are shaved off and smoothed out to make them more compact and contiguous, but they kind of stay the same, right? So we're not divided four ways, but we're divided vertically. So you still have that area of White Marsh in there. But the previous district, if you go over to the left here, look at the total population. I'm scrolling around so you see it highlighted. Total population is nearly 71,000. And then this current district here, which is Tim Briggs, that also over 71,000. Okay, so those are two of the 5 greatest population growth in all of Pennsylvania. Does everybody understand how significant that is? So we already know that our population growth is growing. Now, it's good that these districts, have a very close the new districts, that is, have, you know, lower numbers, you know, a lower population deviation. That's here on the right. But again, we have to think about keeping communities together, and what does that mean? And so I'll show you, there was a proposal by Fair Districts. This, you know, looks a little better than that other one I mentioned. And it makes sense because it keeps most of Lower Merion together. Is everybody seeing that? And it still keeps it population wise. Again, you have to think Lower Merion, we are well over, you know, it would be 4,000 or 5,000 people over the population, you know, set for us, the deviation. But what they've done is they've recommended to include, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with this because it's dividing areas, but this kind of makes sense. You know, the Bryn Mawr area, Villanova University, literally the county line splits it, and then it goes up into Valley Forge. I've also seen maps that have the area of Villanova, kind of up where I live, you know, Bryn Mawr, Haverford area, Villanova, up to include parts of Conshohocken and White Marsh. So most of Lower Merion would still be together. Again, I think better for our community, people less confused who the hell their representative is, because I know it's confusing now. But if anybody has any questions there, you know, on the house map. Oh, I see there's questions. Are the two in there now Mary Jo Daly? Hi, Nancy. Yes. So incumbent wise, you know, you have Mary Jo who's down here. And you have to be thinking, and again, this is no disrespect to, it could be somebody else, you know, it's not about Tim Briggs personally, but you could be the best representative, you know, so communicative and available. And if you have a community where you live and is the majority of your district, which is this case, and then the minority of that district is a different municipality in a different community, I think, you know, this puts you in a very, already from the start, there's a chance of divided loyalties and effectiveness and so forth that just doesn't need to happen. So that's another thing that we should consider in the way that this is drawn. You know, maybe I would gather and gander people like me who live toward the north of Lower Merion are very, it's very common for us to go toward King of Prussia as opposed to Philadelphia or vice versa. So you have to think about communities and where they are.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead. Should I stop the map, or do people want to look at the maps and have me look?
Yeah, well, just as a clue here, when you're talking about divided loyalties, okay, I will again be in a district where Lower Merion is the minority of the district. If you just take a look of how the American Rescue Plan's funding that came into the area was divided by our state senator, most of the money went into where she lives. $1 million of it went into where she lives. So if you're thinking this divided loyalty doesn't mean anything, it really does.
And I just want to point out about that the majority of population in Lower Merion is not toward the north, right? It is where Adrian, you know, Ardmore, Wynwood, Balakinwood, you know, that's not so unusual, right? That those areas would be together. I see Jerry making comments, you know, it hasn't been split since 1972. You know, I think it's important to understand context of what is a split, right? I just said splits, you know, under the PA Constitution should be avoided, but sometimes they're necessary because you have population shifts, which we have in our area. But we want to be thinking, is an effective split. Sometimes splits are necessary to keep communities together. Reading, Allentown, we've heard a lot in the news, or if you haven't, it's been in the news about Latino and majority minority communities, and that how that gives them an opportunity to have more representation, which they do not have in our current state assembly. I'm looking at the other count, splitting Norristown from King of Prussia is screwy. Yeah, I mean, we could go up and look at that district. I don't know if Adrian wants me to do that, but Pam DeLesio would no longer be, Ruth, she would no longer be your representative. That's an interesting one too, as that I'm just clicking over here. She lives in this area, and that map was redrawn to actually put two incumbents together, the only Dem incumbents together. And it's very strange. It includes parts of, you know, East Falls, Manayunk, and I'll just show you here very quickly where that district is. Oh no, this is the people's maps. Pardon me, clicking, lots of clicking, right? So Pam DeLesio lives in Philadelphia. She already has somebody who's announced as a challenger even before these maps came out. She and Chris Rabb are drawn into this district, but there is a lot, you know, and this is why the communities need to speak up. You know, this completely changes the demographics of this area by lumping, you know, parts of Mount Airy, Chestnut Hill with Manayunk, Roxborough, and Wissahickon down there. So there's also issues about, you know, the river here and like the access to get from one side to the other. We know, right? It's not so easy to get to places. There's not the best public transportation either. And this one as well is underpopulated, which is good, but you have to wonder, you know, why two Dems are drawn. So Pam DeLesio, and then, you know, this is some good news. Haverford was included in its own district. So, you know, we will not have, in Lower Merion, we won't have a little, if this gets approved, we won't have a little piece of Lower Merion with Haverford Township. Yeah. So any other questions? Let's see here. Why do I think it was divided that way? Well, Nancy, I think, well, I mean, I think you have to consider that, yes, and now faces off with Chris Rabb. Greg Vitale doesn't even campaign in Lower Merion. Well, frankly, why would he need to? It's, you know, this is what I mean about dividing communities. It's so few population wise. It's not to put him down, but any person who has a population that's divided in the smaller minority portion, you know, that's not, it's common sense, it's math. Although, you know, I guess Greg
I will say Greg has been to my door.
Yeah, he sends stuff out, but again, I'm just bringing up how we can avoid that, and maybe why the Constitution specifically says, you know, we need compact and contiguous districts, and this is what was challenged in the 2018 League of Women Voters lawsuit. What is Jerry asking here? What's with the little purple finger in the southeast corner of West Narden? Oh, back on this map, that's just the way, that's actually correct there, Jerry, because that's how West Narden is divided from Norristown and Bridgeport. So this is an example. It looks weird, but this is actually the municipal boundaries. I think the weirdest one I've seen is like the city of Lancaster. It has like a hand and like weird fingers, and it looks like it's gerrymandered, but it is not.
Yes, Springfield also has that little tip coming out like that. That's the,
yeah. Actually, you know, this side of the county, you know, really one of the most egregious, and I'll show you a gerrymander to maybe show you an example. The current House district, you know, look, this is not because of the geography of different areas. You have Rockledge, you know, a little part of Abington. This is Abington here. So you include, you know, divisions in counties and municipalities. And then this is spliced and diced in Philadelphia. And that's the current 172. So I just thought I'd show you, you know, a ridiculous one. Okay, questions? Jamie, my sense is that Nordenberg is done and that all this commentary is for show. Well, here's the thing, you know, people, they did this during the holidays, and it's not Nordenberg. Okay, so this map was passed 3 out of the 5. Okay, so that's Nordenberg and the 2 Dems. The Dems are happy with this. But when I say Dems, that's the people who drew the maps, including one that's in our county who's been sitting in for Joanna McClinton, who's the chair, and I'm going up to his district because I think that's interesting to look at. That's Matt Bradford. He's very powerful. He's the appropriations chair. He sat in, and he lives here in Worcester. He currently has parts of East Narden and Norristown. That's the yellow district I'm looking at. You know, this was one of the greatest successful gerrymanders for a Democrat in the last redistricting. And yes, Jerry, it is worse than Goofy kicking Donald Duck, which was our congressional seat before, which was just a hot mess. So Worcester, Norristown, and East Narden. And you see West Narden really gets divided here in our current map. That's both in our Senate map as well as our House map that I'm looking at right now. But I come back up to show you this area, and you know, that party leadership matters, right? Like they can, as long as parties are involved, that, you know, they are going to favor incumbency. They are going to be looking at keeping districts safe. And that is frankly a priority, whether, you know, power, you know, my dad used to say power is a powerful drug. And, you know, we have many people in both sides of our legislature. We only have one independent, and he actually didn't run as an independent. He switched to an independent. So 1 out of 253. So this is what they're looking for. So do I think that's true? I don't think so. Nordenberg has a mapper and he's reading all of these comments. So I encourage you, if you need help putting it together, you want to make a statement, I can tell you the league we will be submitting testimony. I'll be meeting at 4 o'clock with Fair Districts folks and other legislator, or, you know, ask your legislator. You know, Mary Jo, she lives in Narberth, you know, I don't know if this looks crazy, you know, like it basically keeps her gerrymandered district and divides our community unnecessarily, population wise. It makes it hard and for ineffective government. And why so? Well, you know, it's, you know, probably to keep certain people safe. That's all I'll say. But it shouldn't be at the expense of keeping communities together and having effective, true representational government. Yes, and you can read all the government. This is comments. Thank you, Nancy, for bringing that up. I'm just going to go back here and show you on the website. Like, say, for instance, I wanted to see, this is the legislative, and you can map if you're interested in mapping. There's a video that I've done with Mainline TV. I go into Dave's Redistricting and I show you, and Fair Districts PA has a great website. But I think it's really important to know that you can also search all the comments. Why is it not letting me search? Oh, here you go. So say I wanted to, so I scrolled all the way down on this comment link up on the right, and I wanted to see, hey, has anybody made a comment about Lower Merion? So let's check. Well, I haven't, but I should tell you this is case sensitive. I know people have made comments about Lower Merion. Maybe they separated.
Put a space between Lower and Merion.
Yeah, I just did. Okay, great.
Okay.
So I can actually see, yeah, there's already some comments, maybe similar to what we've been discussing. And I can click on them and I could read them, and it says, okay, well, right, they're saying don't divide us with Delco again, which this proposed map would not do. So thank you for this person that made this comment, but it doesn't necessarily relate to the proposed map. This is the similar comment. So I'm gonna go out of that. Here we go. Okay. Somebody said, you know, I do not support the way you're carving up my neighborhood. And that's the other thing. You don't need to be like, oh, the population is this and it's overpopulated and this is what the law says. Like, no, look how this person wrote here. You know, this is frustrating. This is political. This makes it difficult for our government. I hope this person saw one of my presentations because I really like this. But you should also be asking your representatives. So a lot of you are commenting to me that you have concerns. Well, ask Mary Jo, ask Tim Briggs, you know, for all intents and purposes, I think they're running again. You know, they've been supporters of Fair Districts PA and redistricting reform. Ask your Board of Commissioners. I know I'm working on contacting and speaking with the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners. This certainly doesn't help us. And for being the largest township and the largest school district, you know, this is not a good division of our community. Okay, Aline, oh yes, Kim, can you explain exactly? Oh yes, Kim, sorry about that. Sean, I will just want to say, Sean, I have an email already to send to you and a couple. So thank you. Oh, sorry, she direct messaged me, but I thank you. That is a good commissioner. Thank you, Sean, for asking. And I will contact you. Just share your personal email with me and I will write to you. Kim, who makes these decisions? I just want to show, since I'm sharing my screen, Fair Districts PA, great resource. I think a lot of you maybe even met me or know me through Fair Districts PA, which is a project of the League of Women Voters advocating for education reform. You know, the problem, Kim, it kind of lays it out here that we still have, you know, a conflict of interest, that our legislators are involved. So it also explains to you how the redistricting happens, and a great video. So our legislative maps are drawn by a 5-person commission, and our congressional districts, that is what you were talking about, the involvement of the legislature. The legislature, it's like a regular bill. It's done, you know, well, not that there's great advocacy there for that, the congressional or, you know, rules around that. But it's done through a process of the House and the Senate. And then goes to the governor for a veto. Now, this has been in the news because they're not all the same party, right? So the General Assembly is Republicans, and then you have a Democratic governor, and he has his own commission, and he certainly has said, you know, I'll veto any map that is a gerrymander, and that's me putting it into a nutshell. The other thing people ask me is, do I think we'll have our election, our primary on time? These maps need to get done. We are almost a month away from when nomination petitions would need to come out. You may have even seen people that have said they're running for office, and then you're like, but wait, are they running for office? Do they even know where they're running? And it is kind of concerning. And I'm not really sure. I can just tell you basic math that there is this 30-day period for the legislative maps, and then there's another 30-day period for legal challenges. So I'm really not sure how the primary could happen. We know that it has been delayed before, like when the first COVID outbreak happened with the 2020 elections. But we do not want to have happen what happened in 2010. The redistricting happens every 10 years after the census, which is that those maps stood in place for like another legislative session. So that's, you know, they stood in place till 2012 when they were redrawn. And, you know, they're not that great as they're redrawn, but, you know, we don't want the current maps because just basic population has massively shifted. And the maps as they're drawn are gerrymandered. You know, do I think the maps are a lot better than they were? Sure, but it's a very low bar. It's a very low bar to compare apples and oranges. And it's not even about partisan lean or advantage. It's really about, do you have a chance at truly representational and effective government? That's a fair map, okay? Frankly, this whole region is Democrat anyway. So if that's something you're concerned about, then maybe you should also be concerned about the overpopulating of districts.
Because that lowers our representation.
Yeah.
If 100 people vote for one guy versus if one rep has 100 people in his district and another rep has 80 in their district, the people with 80 have more of a say than the people in the 100th district.
Yeah, I give like a teacher student ratio, right? Like if you're looking at
that was
schools,
good.
like
That was
something
good.
people look at is that like teacher student ratio. And it's been on, I don't know if any of you follow me on Twitter, but there was we have many school districts that is so bad here that we have to have school districts that are suing the state legislature for underfunding and not doing their constitutional duty to fund school districts. Here in Lower Merion, we make up that void, but it's still unfair because we do it through property taxes. But those school districts, it does not help them to be divided unnecessarily. It does not mean more is more. It is the opposite of that math, because here they're already poor and underfunded, and it also happens to be usually majority minority communities. And they have to deal with like 3-4 representatives when maybe they could only deal with 1 or 2. So it is not more is more. And again, you could be a wonderful, amazing representative and a great advocate, but you're already working against certain odds. Hope that makes sense. And then Nancy, did I ask your question about timing and court cases and so forth? I don't know if I answered them. Somebody asked about Grove. I think it was Ruth Grove's bill. So Representative Seth Grove is the chair of the State House Government Committee, the State Government Committee. And that's where all these bills go through. So these crazy constitutional amendments, like what he's proposing. This is an end run around the separation of powers. He is proposing to redistrict in 2024 everything that's happening right now. So, Republicans certainly, just by geography, they happen to be more in rural areas, suburban and, well, I would say mostly rural, and in areas that are losing population. So, it just geography, they still have favorable maps here, but it's not enough. They're not, last time they were all the majority, so they could draw maps and gerrymander. So please, when you see that in the news that, like for instance, Representative Benninghoff, who is also a gerrymanderer, he's complaining that these maps are favoring Democrats. That's actually not true at all. And you can't really cry foul because you can't gerrymander. So please ignore that.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. I just want to thank you. Your expertise in this. And Nancy
just made a very good comment. Yes, she's right. It's very hard to beat incumbents. They already have the power of having run before and raising money and having, whether that's, the campaign committees behind them and staff and et cetera, et cetera. We want to give every opportunity. And certainly if that person's already a good representative and from your area, they will be represented, like they will have a shot. But we certainly want to give opportunity to have a fair democratic process.
Yes. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions on either the redistricting or being a committee person? You can raise your hand. You can shout out because there's like, okay, we got thank you. And all right.
I feel like a lot of you have seen my presentations. It's getting better and better, but it's still jacked up. So make sure you say something. If you see something, say something. We have so few opportunities to ever have a voice. go on. I know that the chair is reading all of the comments, Jerry, because you made a mention of that. But he is in a very tenuous position between the party leaders on the right and the left of him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is being recorded. It'll be up probably by tomorrow on the YouTube channel, which is in the email that you all got. And yeah, Nancy is also another committee person, and it's really an interesting way to participate in the system. It's really an interesting way to go. And you just find out so much. You find out things like when you bring part of the bylaws to the chair's attention and he doesn't know they're in the bylaws. And so, you would think that that would be something that they would know. Okay, oh, no, it isn't. I gave the wrong Twitter handle.
Yes, Jerry.
That's it. It's stand up for. I get all the handles mixed up. But I want to thank everybody for attending. We'll put some links on the Facebook page. And also I'll put them in the comments underneath the YouTube video, so you know where to go look for things. So thank you again. And I appreciate the attendance. Thank you.